Okay, I am Jay Horton. I make movies that make money. This is how. Today, I am talking to documentary filmmaker Erik K Swanson. Erik, how's it going today, man?
It's going pretty well. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm good, man. So you've built up a YouTube channel. You have over 100,000 subscribers. What do you believe are the unique advantages for doing your own YouTube distribution versus a more traditional distribution approach?
Um, I feel like first of all, there's an immediacy. I mean, literally the day I finish something, I can upload it and start potentially earning money if people actually watch whatever I make. And there's also, it provides, me or anyone who has a YouTube channel with a centralized location where people can view more of your work. Like if I'm on Tubi or Amazon, I have several films on both of those platforms. There is no Erik Swanson page on either of those platforms. So if someone watches one video on YouTube, I feel that there's a higher likelihood that they will click through to watch more to say, hey, what else does this guy have?
Right. Well, a lot of indie filmmakers, they kind of see YouTube as either, a last step in their distribution, or has a stepping stone towards more, traditional distributions. But you seem like you've really made it work as your like primary platform. Is that fair to say? Do you see YouTube as pretty much, it's an end goal with the other things supplementing, or vice versa?
Yeah, pretty much that's at this point now my primary platform. I Everything is kind of a YouTube first approach, and then other streaming platforms, again like Tubi or Amazon, and there's countless others. Those are all secondary. And I have a few, two or three smaller niche streaming platforms
Hmm.
that I have direct relationships with now because of my YouTube channel. One of them licensed, like I make documentaries about basically whatever the hell I feel like making them about. So I have a bunch of videos about various historical topics. So a niche history streaming platform reached out to me and licenses most of those videos. And they the other wonderful thing about YouTube that I find is, I can put up a 3-minute video,
Hmm.
and there aren't too many other outlets out there where that's a viable option.
For indie filmmakers that are struggling with distribution, like, do you recommend people like go down this path like you did, building their own channel? Like, what would you say to somebody starting out? Because I know you've probably been doing it for years. Like, would you take this track again, or how would you recommend someone else go about it now?
Um, I mean, yeah, I would actually recommend it. I At this point, I would take this track again. I honestly wish I had started much sooner. Like, I had a YouTube channel, but I would just periodically upload teasers and trailers for, larger projects I was working on. And it wasn't until just about 3 years ago, in January of 2022, I said, all right, for a year, I'll upload one video a month and give it a shot. And like I said, I wish I had started earlier. I think that these days, I just read a report in, I think it was Variety, where Finding Neverland 2 is going to be released on some production company's YouTube channel. I guess due to legal reasons, HBO didn't want to fund the sequel, and another company picked it up, and that's where they're going with distribution. And the audience doesn't care. And from my experience, at least from a financial standpoint, I have fortunately way more success on YouTube than I do pretty much anywhere else.
So I've from my research on YouTube, they tend to, and my own channel, it seems like it awards consistency and frequent uploads. Now you've taken kind of a like a one project a month track, or even less sometimes, correct?
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. So like as I mentioned just before, I would just randomly upload. I still have one of my videos up there was literally just a camera test. I just went to Central Park because I was living in New York City at the time, and was like, all right, let me test out the slow motion and, you know, all the other features. And I really didn't know anything about it. And then in 2019, I uploaded, I had gone on a trip with my wife and interviewed a few Andean medicine people. And I put together like a 4 or 5 minute interview with with some of the footage. And 2 years later, in 2021, that video just randomly got 10,000 views in a month. And that's kind of what set me on this path to realize that, oh, well, video takes a long time. Like the way that I work, the types of videos that I want to make, I can't make one a week. And I can't, it's not, it wouldn't be sustainable. I would kill myself trying, you know, I'd go crazy. But then it was like, oh, well, with YouTube, things can last for years. And, you know, it's like anything else. It's like if you do one a month, at the end of the year, you've got 12 videos made. At the end of 2 years, 24. And I mean, I put out a video some point in November, and then, you know, just life gets in the way, the holidays. I didn't get another one out until January 20th, I believe it was. So basically 2 months later. And you know, that video did terribly, but then the next video that I put out has done pretty well, you know. So I am increasing. I've added a new style of video to my channel
Mm.
that's more, you know, kind of a stereotypical YouTube with me just talking about my experience making whatever the previous video was.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, from my experience, have not felt any sort of penalty from, you know, only doing one video a month or sometimes waiting 2 months to put a new one out.
Yeah, I was gonna say I haven't really found that to be true myself either. I've there was a time where I was putting out 3 a week because I was doing, you know, vlog style stuff. And I mean, I've actually in the past year, I've been doing them much more sporadically now. I do like one every couple of months. And I've actually found I've had better view numbers on those than I did when I was uploading consistently. And then with docs, you know, it's for me, it's totally random. You know, it can be once a month, sometimes it's not, you know, but it just depends. And I've seen those older titles spike up after a time too, but not consistently. On my channel, it seems like I'll have pretty much like an initial gain either when I first uploaded or maybe, you know, a couple of months later or whatever. But after that big like spike, it kind of trails off and I don't see much from it again. Like every once in a while I might have a little bump, but pretty much seems like they have their day and then it's kind of done.
Oh, weird. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I honestly, it's frustrating. I used to try to see patterns and try to find some sort of logic in it, and it just
There's
doesn't make
none.
sense. You know, like I have two videos. They're two of my most popular videos, so I shouldn't complain. But one of them has one is like 24 minutes long, the other is 12 minutes long,
Okay.
and the 12-minute long video has about half as many views. It has a way higher click through rate and a way higher watch percentage. But the impressions are also like only 25% of the longer video. And it's like, in theory, if you gave it as many impressions as the longer video, ultimately it would have way more
Right.
watch time just based on the click through rate and all of that, you know?
But it
So
doesn't
it's like,
always work out. Yeah.
yeah.
It's so
Yes.
funny. It actually kind of mirrors my like my take on distribution in general anymore is just like it is kind of or well success in the marketplace. Like I hate to say that it's you know it's random or it's luck, but at least the factors that are behind it, I'm not able to identify because there's so many. I don't believe there's like this mystical luck thing, but I do believe that there are what like literally when you're talking about streaming algorithms hundreds, if not thousands, of factors that we don't quite know or don't quite have the data for that, you know, make these things either successes or failures.
Yeah, well, a good example. So that documentary I was mentioning that did terribly, that I released in January. 2 weeks later, I released basically the first of my new type of video where I talked about what it was like filming, and that documentary was me filming the protests outside the 2016 political conventions.
Hmm.
And YouTube, that me talking about filming that documentary. That video has easily twice as many views as the actual documentary. And YouTube gave me a little note that's just straight up said, this video, something along the lines of, this video is gaining a lot more views due to interest in the subject matter.
At
And
the
my
particular,
assumption is just due to the political climate, a
yeah.
lot of people are looking for tips on how to film at a political protest and to know what to expect when they get there, you know.
That's
So,
interesting. That makes sense.
yeah, you
Yeah.
know, and I mean that's I guess probably the only video that I've made so far that could have kind of ridden a wave like that. But I had another video, one of my history videos, just 11 months after I uploaded it, randomly got probably like 150 or 200,000 views in the span of a month.
Wow.
So almost a year later, and then right now it's having a little bit of a resurgence again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
And
really bizarre.
yeah, and it can be frustrating. You know, I had a title about 3 or 4 months ago on alien crash retrievals, which was a pretty hot topic. And it like the first I think the first 2 days, like it blew up. I think I was doing like 100,000 views a day.
Nice.
It hit 300,000 by day 3, had a great retention rate. We're talking like, 35 minutes on a 60-minute video. And I forget what the click through was, but it was high. But like on day 3, and it like wasn't a subtle drop. It went from doing like 3,000 views an hour to like 300, like within an hour. And then like within another hour, it was down to like 2 or 3, and it was just gone. Like that was it. That title is still setting on my channel, whatever, 3 months later, like, maybe 400 or 500 more views than what it had those first 3 days. I'm just like, ah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it made a good amount of money for those 3 days, but then, but that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
I've had a couple where it's like if I look at the chart, I mean, it almost looks like a set of stairs. It's like
Yeah.
flat, then a huge spike, then flat, then a huge spike. It does that like
Yeah.
3 or 4 times over the course of a couple of years. So,
Oh, that's
you know,
cool.
there's always hope that it'll turn around, you know?
Totally. So, with YouTube, do you ever use it like are you trying to, like garner your like subscriber information? Like some people use it and then they'll do, like they'll do the memberships or whatever, but like trying to like more directly own those relationships so that, let's just say for the sake of argument, because YouTube is a, public company, that something happens with it and like, all of a sudden our channels are not there or, are not monetized in the same way.
Yeah, I probably for the past year, maybe more, like I was doing when I first started 3 years ago, I was just making stuff. I didn't know anything about YouTube. Anytime I even watched it, it was to watch tutorials. So I didn't even realize that, like at the time, I didn't know people would want to watch something longer than 5 minutes. And then, I was doing the stereotypical thing, oh, please like and subscribe. And now I don't really do that at all. At the end of
Yeah.
every video, I encourage people to watch another video
Yep.
and then to head to my website and sign up for my newsletter so that I can, like you said, kind of own those contacts and, hopefully try to develop a relationship. I'm not really the best, I should say, at maybe monetizing. Like I am trying to figure out better ways to perhaps start the memberships and, do other things like that. But yeah, I'm not necessarily probably the person you should be seeking advice from for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've tried to dip into it here and there, and it's one of those things you really have to like bear down on. Like you really have to work at it. It's just like over the past couple of years, one thing that like just scares me in general, because like we've seen it happen at least twice now with like a major platform. We saw Amazon, drop rates drastically. We're seeing Tubi, although I wouldn't say they're dropping rates, but the full amounts are going down there like pretty rapidly. So like, so it seems like, in streaming, we have these bubbles, where a thing takes off and then it kind of dies. And so like, I'm always like constantly, it seems like over the last couple of years, it's just like, leapfrogging, jumping from one, platform to another, and that's where you make the bulk of your money. So it's like always trying to find new things or trying to find ways to like, own our relationships with our viewers, but it's hard.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you are in kind of a similar situation to me where, I've got documentaries about history. I've got documentaries about, people looking for Bigfoot. I've got documentaries about people living on boats in part of San Francisco Bay. And it's like people interested in Bigfoot, they might not care about the French and Indian War. And
Yeah.
the French and Indian War people might not care about the folks living on the boats. In your instance, the people that like your horror films might not
Yes.
care about alien abduction. So it makes it even harder to try to build a relationship with the audience because they're not necessarily feeling a connection with me. And as a result, that's part of why, as I've learned more and I keep experimenting, I added myself into my videos a lot more on YouTube
Mm,
to
mm.
try to, and I've added this new video style that I'm going to try out for a year to, hopefully get people to say like, oh, well, I just like there. I have
Like,
a very
right.
small group that are like, every time I see you have a video out, I want to watch it, even if it's not a topic I'm interested in. And it's like, all right, cool. I need to find several thousand more people like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm taking a similar approach with my channel, and it's like it's a little bit frustrating, because we feel like as artists, like you want to do different things, and you want to like build out, you want to do documentaries and horror movies or different types of documentaries, but it's almost like we're penalized for not, sticking with like one thing.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, like sticking for one thing, maybe that thing isn't working. Like this way does put more bullets in our chamber, when we're trying to find one, what's going to break through the noise.
Yeah, well, and like to build off of what you just said, like not only do you have kind of more opportunities for a kind of a breakout, but you have a larger potential audience.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mean, you've made a bunch of Bigfoot things. I have a couple of Bigfoot videos. Those can be very popular, but there is still a limited size. There's a limited number of people who are willing to watch that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
by also having other topics, your entire potential reach, you can go beyond the Bigfoot ceiling in this example.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So, let's talk a little bit about the filmmaking itself. So, I'm assuming, we're making stuff and you're making stuff. We're doing it for fairly low budgets. So my original question was going to be, how do you, stretch out, the budget for quality? But like in your case, it sounds to me like the question might be more like it's more a matter of time than money. I'm making assumptions, but I would assume for you, it's more a matter of taking the time to make the better product than spending more money on it.
Yeah, which at the same time, I feel that, it's important to acknowledge that, the old saying, time is money, that's actually true. I've seen
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
in your Facebook group and other groups online where people are talking about, I made this film for no money. And it's like, well, I still have an electric bill to pay that I need to be able to run my computer to even, I still have to buy food. I still have to pay my rent. It's like these are all legitimate expenses that, I'm trying to. The first company that's coming to mind is Miramax, and I didn't want to really use that reference. So
Mhm.
I don't know, whatever Lionsgate will say.
Yeah.
They those are all expenses that they factor into their movies. For me, I'm fortunate where I started off kind of going down the road of animation and learned. I worked for years doing like motion graphics for news and sports and commercials, and then I expanded out to editing. I had always been into filming and whatnot, ever since I was in my early 20s, I guess.
Mhm.
And then I, saved up, got my first kind of prosumer camera and started filming. And so now it's like I feel that I have just a really good grasp of post production and even filming at this point, even though that's what I've actually been doing the least. That yeah, like you said, it's really just a matter of like, like for my history documentaries or, doing Bigfoot. For me, a big part of that is I grew up loving Ray Harryhausen, and it's like I want to make this 3D animated Bigfoot scene to visualize whatever the interview subject is describing,
That's great. Yeah, dude. Excuse me. Oh, goodness gracious. Awesome. So you kind of touched on it a little bit in the last question, talking about editing, but like I have found that like with documentary filmmaking, it's like 95% post production.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
for
you,
sure.
you would agree with that?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and from I don't know how other people work when they do things, but for me, it's like the editing is the writing process.
Yes.
Like I go in and I prepare for stuff and I do as much research as I can. If it's a history documentary, that is obviously different than a lot of other things because it is very heavy front loaded with research and writing.
Hmm.
But if I'm interviewing, like the people who live on boats in San Francisco Bay, Richardson Bay, like I've been doing a series that I'll ultimately turn into a feature film. Like, I did as much research as I could. Before I ever went out there, I looked into it. I learned everything I could find about the subject. But then when I start interviewing people, that's almost like part of the research and the fact finding, you
Mm.
know? So then when I get home, a lot of times, and I have the footage and I look through it, it's like, okay, well, now I need to look up more things to confirm what people are saying or, debunk what they're saying or, and figure out how do I shape this into a narrative that makes sense.
Yeah, that sounds really really similar to my approach. Like I go to my interview subject, I do a little bit of research on it. I write out my questions, but I usually find like their answers lead to other questions. Like you film them for several hours, and then it's a matter of taking those and shaping it into something. Like I don't. I know when I approach most documentaries, I don't have a preconceived notion of where exactly I'm going with it. I don't know about you. Like, do you have like a tone or a theme or a message you're trying to get across at first, or do you really find it in the interview?
Yeah, I would say I try to find it in the interview for the most part. I guess it kind of depends topic to topic.
Right.
Whereas, like, certain things I may have sympathy for the people I'm interviewing, or, some of them might just be almost like documenting my interaction with this person, and
Mm,
this is, trying to show this one video I made a couple years ago with this guy who he had turned like this rusty old box truck into like this cute little shack home. And it's like that guy was more just like trying to connect with another human being. And when I first met him, the landowner of the land he was squatting on was already trying to evict him. So it's
mm.
like, okay, well, I already knew what the end was going to be, but there it's not really about him being evicted. It's more about, his emotional state and experience of having to deal with this.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you're picking subjects like this, are you picking like stuff that you're interested in, or is it like does it change from project to project? Is it stuff that you just have access to? Like how do you usually decide?
Mostly I try to keep it to things that I'm just interested in. There's been a couple where it's like, you know, something just kind of came my way, and
Mm,
I don't think I'm going to really do that anymore because those videos they didn't turn out that great. I enjoyed making them just because I enjoy doing this, but it was and I feel it was because I wasn't fully invested in it and wasn't necessarily, I guess, passionate about making it. It was kind of just like, oh, okay, I need to make a video. Like this year, I'm actually trying to be a lot more strategic. Like I
mm,
have at least, I think, four feature length docs that I need to edit. And, last year something came up that I am passionate about that made me jump off of one in the middle of editing and pick up another one. Um, but now it's kind of like, all right, I need to really strategize and plan things out, and like, okay, these are only going to be things that I'm very intentional about and I'm very just kind of curious about. To me, a big a big thing that I love about it is just getting to meet all sorts of different people and
Yeah.
talk to them and try to understand where they're coming from to some degree, you know?
Oh, totally. I was telling somebody the other day, one of the best things about doing documentaries, like especially once you start earning a little bit from them, it's basically like you're getting paid to learn like new things, and to meet people that are super passionate about their, the subject matter. Like even if it's something that I'm not particularly interested in, we've talked about Bigfoot a few times. I'm not a Bigfoot guy. I'm not really interested in it, but I do find the people fascinating. And
Yeah.
when the person is like super passionate about a subject, it's hard not to get caught up in it.
Yeah, totally. It's funny you
Yeah.
say that because I mean, I've, I mean, I love the stories. They're
Hmm.
cool, you know, and I like the, kind of mystery aspect of it. But it's like, I love nature. I love hanging out in the woods. So why wouldn't I want to go hang out in the woods with a bunch of people? And the people are, even though like they have kind of their internal conflicts and disagreements, they're all just super nice, friendly people. Like I couldn't imagine, yeah, not wanting to spend time with at least the folks that I've met in that community, you know?
Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about analytics and stuff, but like it seems like, we both kind of landed on, a lot of it we can't really figure out. But do you still like, are you using your analytics a lot, or have you kind of got to the point now where it's kind of like, I'll look at it, but it's not really affecting how I make things?
Um, I don't really necessarily let it affect how I make things. I definitely let it affect how I make my titles and thumbnails.
Okay.
That the title and thumbnail at this point, it's like I'll upload, I'll have two or three different options to test. And if the click through rate isn't good, I'll change the title and thumbnail maybe one or two more times over the next day or two. After about 2 days, like
Hmm.
I'm trying to release typically on a Saturday. So by the time Monday rolls around, it just is what it is. If all of my changes haven't made a difference by then, maybe 3 months down the road, I'll try a new one.
Right.
But I don't really worry about it that much. As far as like actually making the videos themselves, I do look at certain things. Like I have one video that I was sure it would have done a lot better than it did. Like this guy living on his boat caught fire. I happened to be there with my camera
Oh
and
wow.
got some what I think is some pretty cool footage. And that video just really did not perform well at all. And that one, I can't help but think that maybe I edited the intro to be like a little too in your face and a little too, you know, cutty and intense,
Mm,
high action, so to speak. For at least what is my typical audience, you know.
gotcha. That makes sense. Click through rate. I had something on that. Oh, do you use the thumbnail tester? Like when you first upload and you can upload the three variations, like do you use that click through test, or is that
Yeah, I
something?
typically do.
Okay. I
Sometimes I don't,
yeah.
just because it's like it doesn't tell me the actual click through rate, you know.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, if you don't get enough data, it definitely doesn't.
but well, it tells you which one brought you the
Oh,
most watch time.
right.
So
Okay.
that it's like sometimes I'll have a couple of options and only upload one and then
Uh-huh.
manually change them.
Right.
But it's also hard to know, like the last video that I uploaded, it didn't perform terribly. The click through rate, I'm gonna make this up, but it was like we'll say 4.6%.
Yeah.
So I changed it and then it went down to like 4.3%. And I was like, whatever, I'm leaving it. And by the next day, the click through rate shot up to 7%. And I
Right.
hadn't done anything. So it's like, okay, I feel like you can easily overanalyze because
Yeah, I think
if,
so.
like I don't do YouTube shorts anymore, but when I tried them for a few months, this is the best example. I uploaded a video that was a clip of a Andean medicine woman talking about sound medicine, sound healing,
Hmm.
and it did terribly, but most of my views were coming from search traffic and they were searching for like I don't remember the guy's name, some big YouTuber doing push-up, Andrew Tate
Okay.
push-ups. And it's like, what is this, like
Yeah.
60, 70-year-old medicine woman from Ecuador have to do with Andrew Tate doing push-ups? So it's like, of course the video did terribly because YouTube was showing it to the wrong people,
Ah,
you
that's really
know?
weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Man. Whew. What's like what is your like overall plan moving forward?
I mean, for right now, I'm basically I'm kind of looking at it as I don't want to make an assumption, but I think it might be kind of like the same outlook that you have, where it's like I need to basically build up a library, a large enough body of work where even during the slow times, I have enough money coming in to comfortably pay all my bills, and I'm not frantic about like, oh my God, I need to make another video and it needs to do well.
Right.
That's kind of my objective. And then, hopefully if that can happen ideally sooner than later, then I can potentially even take even more time to make things if I need to, or I feel that I want to. Like, like I mentioned, the one kind of series that I'm putting out that I want to make into a feature film that I mean, I'm going to want to spend easily 3 or 4 months, if not more, putting that together. And it's like right now, I just don't feel that I'm in a situation where I can do that. I need to just keep building up a backlog of work.
Right. Yeah, I mean I took a really similar approach when I first started making documentaries. I mean I'm able now to take time off to go back and shoot narratives again, but it took several years building up enough titles. But now I'm kind of getting to the point where, like I said, I'm watching. I mean, I have probably 80 titles in, like in the, like, Tubi, Amazon, everything else at, marketplaces. And I mean, I saw on Tubi this year between June and July, like it dropped almost 50%, like, across the board, except for on brand new titles, and it hasn't bounced back. So I'm kind of like, that is worrisome, because
Yeah.
like Tubi was for me, it's been my number one platform for about the last 3 years. This year, like YouTube came real close to that and Amazon, but like I figure next year my YouTube will be number one, but because Tubi just keeps falling, but it scares me, because you're just like, man, like this thing that was like the cornerstone of what you make money from, can just go away. Like
Yeah,
it's
totally.
really frightening as a creator.
Well, it's funny, like not, not to get into politics or anything, but uh, even just a month ago when everyone was freaking out that TikTok was
Mm,
going to be banned, it's like, whatever free speech implications aside, I was like, God damn, just ban that so that everybody has to go to YouTube.
right.
Purely selfish reasons.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I had thought. So
Probably not a good mentality to have, but whatever.
before we wrap up, I did want to ask you a little bit about the marketing side of it, because I found it very hard to market towards YouTube. It seems to me, and I hate even saying this because I run a distribution and marketing channel, but it mostly seems like it's mostly organic, and there's not a lot you can do, besides stuff that you trigger with the video itself and your thumbnails and your metadata. But like besides that, with actually trying to like push outside traffic to it or whatever, it doesn't seem that effective to me. At least I haven't found an effective strategy for it.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even really bother. Like
Yeah.
usually a week after I upload a video, I'll make a kind of vertical version of the intro. So the first like 30 to 60 seconds.
Yep.
I'll put that on like Instagram, Facebook, maybe even a square version on LinkedIn.
Mm.
Um, I don't feel that that's generated any traffic, but there have been a few times where, like right now, one of my videos, it's not a video that's performing very well, but one of the main sources of traffic is people on Telegram sharing it around to each other. And I've had in the past where I'll notice a ton of external traffic from you know, maybe a blog or a news article or something, and then that will actually trigger the algorithm to start pushing it out to more people on the homepage.
Yeah. One more thing on that, because something you said in there just reminded me of something. Like, I've heard a couple of people on YouTube recommend that when you are marketing towards YouTube, that you don't do it in the first couple of days that the video is published, to let the YouTube algorithm kind of figure things out before you start pushing outside traffic to it.
Yeah, that's kind of the approach that the mentality I have towards it, where it's like you want them, the YouTube algorithm, to figure out who are the people that want to watch this video. And at least in my own analytics, I can see for the past several months, there's actually a very distinctive pattern where my videos that do well, they do really well around like 3 p.m. my time until about 5 or 6 p.m. Then they dip back down. Then they spike even higher than they did from about 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. And then it slowly goes down till about 4 or 5 a.m. And then it'll drop way down sometimes at around 6 a.m. and, you know, slowly creep back up until around 3 p.m. the next day when it starts the cycle over again. And while the views are doing that, while they're the lowest, is when my click-through rate starts jumping back up. So
Interesting.
basically, it's like my understanding or assumption is that during the times when I'm getting a lot of views, YouTube is throwing this video out in front of as many people as they think might enjoy it.
Right.
They exhaust that pool of people, and then they scale back and they start really dialing in, you know, oh, well, this guy watches, you know, history videos and, you know, interviews about minimalists or whatever. So maybe he'll like Erik's videos, you know. And then once they feel like, oh, the click through rate went back up, we have a good idea that there's another 100,000 people out there that may want to watch this. They send it out and put it on their home screens.
Right. Well, Erik, thank you so much for taking the time. Let's tell everybody what your YouTube channel is called. You're over 100,000 subscribers now, right?
Yeah, I think it's almost 175 now.
That's great. What's the name of the channel?
My channel is Erik K Swanson.
Oh, great. Easy enough.
Yeah, easy to remember.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for taking the time, man.
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
All right, guys. Keep making movies.